In the year 1823, in a small Appalachian town, something happened that people would whisper about for generations, a story that haunted the edges of the forest and lingered in the shadows of every flickering hearth. They spoke of a cabin deep among the pines, abandoned yet somehow alive, a place where travelers vanished without a trace, and the wind itself seemed to carry warnings no one dared decipher. The locals would pause mid-step, glance toward the dense woods, and hush their children, murmuring of strange sounds, flickering lights, and a sense that eyes unseen watched from the dark underbrush. Some said it was greed that drew men to the cabin, others whispered curiosity, yet none could deny the fear that settled in the valley after the last soul disappeared without a single word. It was late autumn, and the forest wore a cloak of gold and crimson, leaves rustling under the cold wind, the smell of damp earth and smoke from distant hearths mingling with the crisp mountain air. The village sat in a narrow valley. Timbered homes huddled along muddy roads, smoke curling from stone chimneys, the distant whistle of a mill wheel marking time in a place untouched by hurry or modern talk. Elias Thorne was a wiry man, his hands calloused from years of axe work, hair streaked with gray, eyes sharp but restless, and a reputation for seeking what others feared, a mixture of caution and curiosity. He had moved to the valley from a larger town, seeking solitude, yet found the wilderness spoke to him, whispering challenges and secrets, and promising discovery beyond what his neighbors dared imagine. His cabin sat on the edge of the forest, modest, with moss on its roof, a chimney spitting thin smoke, and a small garden struggling against the rocky soil, a home shaped by effort and stubborn pride. Villagers watched him with distant respect, some with suspicion, noting how he wandered the woods for hours, axe in hand, journal at his side, always marking trails and cataloging what most ignored or feared. Elias spoke little of his past, yet he listened with intensity, absorbing the murmurs of locals about lost travelers, strange lights, and old tales of the cursed cabin deep in the forest's heart. His daughter, Miriam, was a quiet girl of 12, curious like her father but grounded, with brown hair that caught the sunlight, eyes alert to shadow and sound, often following him on his cautious excursions. They shared meals by candlelight, the smell of cornbread and stew filling the cabin, while outside the wind rattled branches and the forest whispered warnings, unseen and unfathomable, as if nature itself held judgment over their coming choices. Evenings brought the hoot of owls and the scrape of distant animals, Elias often staring toward the dark horizon, knowing that somewhere among those pines, the cabin awaited, silent, patient, and hungry for another story to swallow whole. Elias could not shake the stories, whispers of those who had entered the cabin and never returned, and yet a stubborn pull in his chest urged him to see it for himself, to uncover what others feared. Miriam noticed his restlessness, the way he lingered by the forest edge, eyes tracing paths where no trail truly existed, a silent worry pressing against her small frame. "Father, why do you go so far?" she asked one evening, voice barely above the crackle of the fire, her brown eyes wide with concern and curiosity. "The forest holds answers, child," he replied, tone steady yet distant. "Answers that cannot be found in hearths or town halls, only among the shadows where men seldom tread." Villagers murmured when he passed, shaking heads in disapproval, warning their children to stay clear of Elias's wandering, whispering that some curiosity leads only to sorrow and silence. Elias found himself drawn to strange patterns among the trees, broken branches, scorched earth, footprints that vanished, and signs of lives interrupted, the forest offering both challenge and foreboding. He debated, night after night, whether to go deeper, listening to the wind's moan as if it were pleading for restraint, yet a stubborn pride flared, daring him to face what others could not. Miriam tried to keep pace, but fear slowed her steps, her small hands trembling as branches scraped her arms, the shadows around them seeming alive, almost aware of their presence. One afternoon, Elias discovered a clearing littered with remnants of old fires, tattered cloth, and rusted tools, a silent graveyard of human presence, chilling yet compelling him forward, a warning and a lure combined. He paused, hand on his journal, pen ready, knowing that every mark could be evidence, or proof that curiosity might demand a price he was yet unaware of. Whispers in the village spoke of greed and folly, tales of men who sought treasures or secrets and found only the void. Yet Elias felt neither greed nor folly, only a need for understanding beyond mortal fear. Night fell as he ventured further, the moon thin and pale, branches clawing at his coat, the hoot of owls sharp and accusing, the forest silence punctuated by distant, unidentifiable sounds. A sudden rustle froze him in place, eyes darting toward a shadow that seemed unnaturally human, yet vanished before he could confirm, leaving only the thrum of his heartbeat and the taste of cold fear. "Father, wait," Miriam whispered, her voice barely carrying over the wind. "Something isn't right." Yet Elias pressed onward, a stubborn resolve flaring, a mixture of pride and a thirst for truths hidden from common eyes. He stumbled upon a path marked by strange carvings, crude symbols etched into bark, their meaning unknown, yet they resonated with a quiet warning, a moral tension that tugged at both courage and reason. Elias paused to decipher them, feeling an unease that crawled beneath his skin, realizing the forest itself seemed to judge his intrusion, testing the limits of his ambition against the wisdom of restraint. The farther he went, the thicker the trees, the darker the forest, and the more palpable the sense that someone, or something, watched their every move, a presence that measured intent and morality in silence. By twilight, Miriam shivered, clutching her father's arm, and even Elias felt a pulse of dread, a whisper of consequence for daring to cross the boundary between curiosity and hubris, the moral of the woods closing in. The next morning, Elias awoke to find the forest silent, too silent, as though even the wind feared to speak, leaves still under a gray sky, the air heavy with an unspoken threat. Miriam refused to leave his side, her small hands gripping his, eyes darting to every shadow, every rustle, as if the forest itself had sharpened its attention on them. They discovered a stream, clear and cold, yet littered with remnants of broken vessels and human bones, faintly bleached, a grim testament to those who had ignored warnings and vanished. Elias knelt, examining them with both dread and fascination, his journal ready, writing notes that felt heavier than ink, each mark a reminder of fragile mortality in the face of nature's judgment. The villagers' warnings echoed in his mind, faces lined with fear and resignation, yet Elias pressed on, convinced that understanding the cabin meant confronting both human folly and the forest's hidden truths. Miriam's voice trembled as a crow cawed overhead, wings cutting the pale light. "Father, what if the stories are true?" Yet Elias only nodded, unwilling to admit that doubt now gnawed at his own certainty. At dusk, they reached a fallen oak, its trunk split like an open wound, roots tangled with scorched soil, a place that reeked of fire and old sorrow, a warning carved in decay and silence. Elias noted strange footprints circling the tree, some human, others impossible, deformed, their shapes twisting in ways that chilled the blood, the forest whispering in shadows that were not entirely natural. Miriam shivered, clutching her cloak, sensing eyes in the darkness, while Elias debated whether to follow the faint trail leading deeper into the woods, where the canopy swallowed light and the air thickened with foreboding. As night fell, fireflies danced in unnatural patterns, and distant laughter echoed through the pines, hollow and mocking, carrying a cadence that seemed older than the valley itself, a sound that twisted the mind. The cabin appeared suddenly, partially hidden behind ancient oaks, smoke curling from its crooked chimney, the structure leaning as if weighed by unseen hands. Yet no one stirred, no signs of life beyond shadows and decay. Elias stepped closer, senses heightened, Miriam behind him, the forest holding its breath as the door creaked on its own, inviting, warning, and promising secrets no human ought to disturb. Inside, the air was thick with rot, dust, and the scent of old smoke. Furniture overturned, journals and trinkets scattered, and the unmistakable sense that previous visitors lingered in echoes of their final moments. He lifted a journal from a corner, pages yellowed, writings frantic, sketches of strange symbols and warnings, the author's fear bleeding through every line, a moral lesson etched in terror for those who dared enter. A sudden crash in the attic made Miriam scream, and Elias's heart raced, footsteps above, pacing or approaching, though no one could be there. The forest itself a silent accomplice to fear's orchestration. He called out, voice trembling, yet only echoes returned, laughter or crying indistinguishable, the cabin's walls vibrating with unseen energy, pressing the weight of consequence against the mind and body. Miriam's hand shook, brushing against a small, carved figure on the floor, worn and blood-stained, symbolizing greed, curiosity, or pride, a subtle moral tether warning that each choice bore a price. Elias debated whether to leave, yet pride and obsession rooted him in place, the moral tension suffocating as the forest outside seemed to lean in, shadows stretching unnaturally, whispering for restraint and judgment alike. By midnight, the wind howled, rattling the windows, the forest's judgment manifest, unseen figures moving beyond sight, the air alive with consequence, as if nature itself demanded acknowledgement of human trespass and folly. Suddenly, the floor beneath Elias groaned, a deep crack splitting the silence, and the shadows in the cabin seemed to move independently, reaching, twisting, as if judging every step he had taken. Miriam clutched his sleeve, voice trembling. "Father, we need to go." Yet Elias could not tear himself away, the pull of discovery and stubborn pride holding him fast, tethered to an unseen force. A low whisper filled the room, unintelligible yet chilling, echoing from the walls themselves, like the voices of those lost, carrying both accusation and warning, each syllable weighing heavy on the conscience. The attic door flung open without touch, a cold gust sweeping through, extinguishing candles, revealing a figure blurred and shrouded, neither fully human nor entirely spirit, its presence pressing like a storm upon the mind. Elias stepped forward, fear and fascination entwined, his journal dropping to the floor as he reached for the figure, only to have it vanish, leaving behind a silence so thick it seemed alive. Miriam's small voice pierced the stillness. "Father, it's the cabin. It doesn't want us here." Her words carrying both clarity and fear, a moral truth that pride and curiosity cannot silence. Objects shifted violently, chairs overturned, books flung across the room, and the walls pulsed with a cold, rhythmic beat, as if the cabin itself breathed, aware of every trespass and every flaw of human intent. Elias realized then, too late, that the cabin was a mirror, reflecting greed, curiosity, and pride back upon those who dared enter. Each consequence exacted in silence and shadow, a lesson written in fear and permanence. Miriam tugged desperately at his arm, and he felt the weight of every lost soul, the echoes of vanished travelers, the burden of his own hubris, pressing him toward a single, terrifying choice: flee or surrender. A final gust extinguished all light, plunging them into darkness, whispers rising into a crescendo, a moral judgment complete, leaving only footsteps, breath, and the understanding that some doors, once opened, demand a price beyond human reckoning. Elias grabbed Miriam, running blindly through the cabin, stumbling over debris and shadows, the forest outside seeming both distant and impossibly close, the boundary between choice and consequence dissolving under the weight of the night. They burst into the cold night air, the cabin behind them still, silent, yet alive in memory, its judgment fulfilled, the forest returning to its quiet watchfulness, a lesson carved deep into both heart and soul. Dawn broke over the valley, pale sunlight filtering through mist, painting the forest in muted gold. The world calm once more, yet Elias and Miriam felt the lingering weight of the cabin, heavy on their minds and hearts. Villagers stared in quiet awe as they returned, faces etched with questions they dared not speak aloud. The story of the forest and its cabin now written into the rhythm of their lives. Elias sat by the hearth that evening, firelight dancing across his tired face, journal closed, pen untouched, the lessons of pride, curiosity, and consequence settling into the quiet corners of memory. Miriam helped tend the small garden, leaves still glistening from morning dew, yet every shadow seemed to whisper, reminding her of what lay beyond the tree line and the fragile line between courage and folly. The forest returned to its ancient silence, the cabin hidden among the pines, patient, waiting, a reminder that some places measure human hearts, and some mistakes demand quiet reckoning rather than loud cries. Elias spoke little, yet when he did, his words carried weight, stories of caution without judgment, of curiosity tempered by respect, of lessons that lingered in whispers rather than shouts, echoing the forest's timeless wisdom. And in that valley, people learned that some mistakes don't echo loudly, they whisper for generations.